This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Max Vollmer. What's going on, Max?
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Hey, I'm excited here. So Max, a little background. Max is only 24 and crushing it. Why don't you give us a little background on what you have going on down in Florida?
Yeah, so like the current snapshot of our business, I would say, is really diverse. And, the way we're changing, there's a lot of the recession environment coming in. But as of right now, we've done probably too many things at the same time. But we're like, heavily in the single family space, doing the typical wholesale innovation, but also turnkey, fix and flips, rehab rentals, short-term rentals, you name it. We also do multifamily syndications, not just in Florida, also in different states. On top of that, we're running a European fund, so we deploy a lot of money from Europe, especially for a turnkey investment. It's 100% just investors overseas. We don't do any turnkeys yet with investors in the United States because we had that niche market. And we're also building on a brokerage and a title company in-house. Right now, it's just one of the two things that we're working on that is set for quarterly, for the next quarter goal. But yeah, a lot of adjustments are happening right now with the economy turning, right? We're trying to diversify and focus more on the single family space to just rental acquisition and turnkey versus, wholesale and all these other things. We're trying to be more focused in our approach to sustain and be, just laser focused moving forward until the market turns and more opportunities opening up again.
Yeah, it's really impressive too, because I know when I was 24 years old, I wasn't doing anything in real estate at all. I was like bar hopping. Yeah, and you're like way ahead of the game here at your age, and that's I gotta give you some kudos there. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think the whole social media space these days has opened up opportunities for younger people like myself to be, like you said, ahead of the game, right? If you think about when you were 24, there wasn't really access to all that free education, free knowledge, and there's just an overflow of information that is impossible to ever consume because of social media, right? Social media has given access for educators in real estate and other industries to put their input out there, and everyone has access to it. And I think this has really changed the game that, now we can achieve something 10 years earlier by just having access to tools, having access to mentorships, having access to all the education out there. And then it's just really on you to implement and to achieve, right? I've met a lot of young people that are crushing in real estate, my age. Initially I thought, dude, you're like early on, but there's a lot of guys crushing it early on because they're taking advantage of what's given for free and what's given for, mentorship. And I think that's the secret of success, that you guys, having these podcasts, giving us all the information, we're listening to it, we're implementing it, and then be kind of like having the accessibility to be faster in a way that, than other people in the back in the days.
Yeah, and you're right too, because there is a lot more information here, but also I think you crush it too. I think it might be something in your personality, because you have a track and field background also, which you're ranked what? Like you're top 8 in European Championship or something?
I was top 8 in the world ranking for multiple years in the decathlon. So decathlon, for those that do not know, is pretty much as they say, the king discipline of track and field. It combines 10 events, 2 days. So it involves a lot of training, commitment, versus just, doing the sprints. It's just doing the throwing events. You have to kind of combine it all and combine different training of explosiveness, technique, and endurance. So it was definitely a major commitment, and it's taught me a lot of things that I used for, later on going into business. Things like commitment, things like, I guess maybe that's also the reason why we're doing so many things, is because when I was doing track, I couldn't decide for one event either, right? I did them all. And I think, right now I'm seeing the same similarities. I guess we're doing it all. And I had to I need to find the focus, but yeah, track and field, on that high level, it was such, I always told people it was like a world for me where you could basically create anything, right? Because anything, I guess any success, as everyone is always teaching, starts with an idea, it starts with a vision, it starts with what are you thinking, how you're talking to yourself, the commitment, the sacrifice, all these things, right? So it's always taught. And it's not as easily implemented in real life or in business, because it takes time until you see the results, right? Once you start implementing habits, it will take time once you see, more sales coming in, or being a better leader. Those things take time, but in sports, it's so instant, right? It's like you do an approach for an event and you change your mindset, you change your feeling, you implement something and you instantly achieve something, right? You might jump high, you might throw farther because you just connect the dots differently. So you can quicker like learn by implementing those techniques in sports and then use what is, working for you while you're doing sports and putting it to business with the belief, okay, it worked in sports. Now let's use it here and let's be patient and, stay consistent, stay committed to that habit and see what happens along the way. So that combination, I think, was the secret for us to get to it quickly because we've already had that success. So I already had that success in sports and I knew what it took from where I started. When I initially started track and field, doctors actually told me that I could never be a professional athlete because when I was young, I had really strong asthma. So I had to go to the hospital multiple times because I couldn't really breathe. And, initially there was like, no way this guy is ever going to be an endurance athlete, right? And from there to then being one of the best in the world was definitely a journey that had a lot of training, but also had a lot of just mindset, right? Just being able to visualize, this is my goal. I want to be a professional athlete. I want to be one of the best in the world. And I put everything to it. And then when we decided to go into real estate, it was the same game. I was like, you know what? I want to be successful. I saw all these people being successful and I was like, I want to be like them. And I knew what it took back in the days for sports. I just used the same philosophy and went all in.
Yeah, and you're right too with headspace, like especially with sports or anything. Like I know in the business side too, it's like whatever you think about, you're gonna turn into pretty much.
Yeah, if you stick to it, right? I think the key to success is you have the idea, it all starts with a thought, and you put emotions to that thought to create that reality, right? A thought itself is just a thought. We're always thinking, but there's a thought, you grab that thought, you put emotions to it, and then from those emotions, you put a commitment to it, some kind of, rocks or steps to get there. And then you consistently feed those steps and that vision with more emotions, with hope, with visualizing how it feels when you accomplish that goal. Like you really bringing it into reality. And I think this is how you can close that gap a lot quicker because you're already like living ahead, right? You're already seeing like, hey, this is what my business is going to look like. And this is what it's going to feel like in 6 months. And this is what I need to do to get there. And then you go reverse back. Okay, the step 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and always consistently feed in that emotional component and that visualization with it so that you're always staying on track and measuring your own steps and your own success.
Yeah, what do you say? Or you have any tips on the consistency? Because I know a lot of people, they can have the idea is great, they start sprinting, and then it just fizzles out. And you have to be persistent.
I think the key for me to be successful with that regard is in sports, you always write yourself like a training plan. So you always have a plan every single day. When you go to the gym or to the track, you know exactly how many reps you're doing, exactly the warm up, the cool down, everything, right? So in sports, it's really, common that everyone has a plan. What I see in business is a lot of people, they have a plan, but they don't really necessarily write down like a training plan, if you would say so, every single day. So what I started doing is every night before I go to bed, basically I reflect on the current day, what I've accomplished this day and what is still needed for the next day and what is, the 1 week and the 1 month goal and what do I need to do tomorrow to get to the goal, right? And if I'm really overwhelmed, I have an 80-20 rule, like the 20 things that really matter and the 80 things that, important, but could also be done the next day. So I basically just write out my next day from when I wake up to until I go to bed, like from, meditating, going to training, grocery shopping, like I have literally blocks of just like boop, 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 like a training plan. And I just go through the day and I just check mark them for my list. So I know exactly, like I pre-planned a day and it allows me to like be really efficient and to really, use my time, which is the most valuable resource that we have, the most efficient way. Which especially back in the days when I initially started the real estate business, but I still doing a full-time school, competing for Germany, competing for Oregon, right? I had a lot of things to handle. So I really had to like sit down and plan, like when am I doing what? And how do I use my time from walking from training to classroom? Am I listening to this podcast, right? And am I calling that person because I have 10 minutes of walking time? Like really planning it out. It's definitely a headache when you start because you're like, dude, I'm just sitting there planning all day long. But once you get really into it, it gets really easy. And I'm always like thankful at the end of the day because you're not slipping through, right? If you have like an hour gap and all of a sudden you don't know what to do, or you have so many things to do that you're like overwhelmed, you just waste it out. Versus thinking about beforehand, like if I have an hour, I know I have an hour, what am I going to do? What is the 80-20, the 20 things that I need to get done? And I think this allows myself to be really laser focused on a task that I need to accomplish to get from 0 to 1 and beyond.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because when you're breaking it down, it's like, when you go to the gym, you have a plan.
Exactly.
So why not do that during the day? Because I mean, even me, like I run a pretty tight schedule, but sometimes I'll have time off and I'm like thinking about, oh shit, I got to do like 4 different things. What are you doing? You just waste that time for planning it the night before.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I always tell all my employees, my team members. It's not as easily implemented, but there's a certain type people like doing it, and there's other type that just doesn't. They just go with the flow, and it works either way. For me personally, I just need that structure. If I go to the gym without a structure, I just end up doing random things, and I'm like sitting in the gym, like, okay, what should I do next? Versus like you have a plan, and then okay, I'm gonna do this, and then when you're done, and then you just leave, right? So definitely that's my secret, or that's what I can give definitely to everyone. Always ask me, how do you juggle so many balls? Just like I'm just planning it all out, and I work like a machine, and one by one we'll get down.
How do you plan it out? Like the night before, so you plan your day the next day? Do you use like Google Calendar and like literally timestamp when you're doing things, or how do you organize it so you can keep yourself accountable and actually do it?
No, it's actually just like literally this. I write it on a paper, right? Because for some reason I like the feeling of having I have a thick black Sharpie and I just cross it. It's like this is just a milestone. It's like, okay, I got this one done. Well, I tried it on like Google Sheets and on my notes and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel as satisfying when you delete it, just personally, than just like crossing it off. So yeah, you can do it either way. I just like the feeling of just like crossing it off, and I know I've done it.
You know what? You're right on that too. So I use Google Calendar, and I used to, I use Asana now, but when I was doing Google Calendar, I'd put like all the things I needed to make sure I needed done during the day at 6 a.m. before the day, and then I'd juggle all that stuff. And then when I was done with it, I'd move it to noon, like midnight. So I just keep moving them up, and you get satisfaction on, okay, that one's done. That one's done, So yeah. I think you're rocking with the Sharpie.
Yeah, that's what my thing, I guess. It's probably not the most wasteful resource doing it this way, but yeah, I always use a Sharpie.
It works, right?
It works, yeah.
Yeah, so primarily, like on your business, which part, because you have multiple types of the business, you deal in Florida, and you also do virtual too, right?
Yeah, so we actually started a whole virtual, I'd say last year, it was a virtual wholesale business. This is how we started in real estate. It was a virtual wholesale business. And we started in one state and we implemented 8 different states. And it was working because the market was unique, right? I don't think it's necessarily a business model that works and sustainable over a long period of time. But when the market was crazy like it was last year and the year before, we could implement those strategies. We just did virtual acquisition, wholesale, and as everyone knows, right, it was working. But then we quickly realized, this is not going to be sustainable forever by talking to people that have been in the industry for a while, right? Because initially we thought, we cracked the code and we know how to do real estate. But when you talk to people that have been in the industry for 10, 15 years and you learn their lessons and you see the cycles that eventually occur through real estate, you realize, okay, we have to adopt and shift earlier to be able to sustain whatever might happen, right? We all understood that the last market was definitely inflated and there was nothing that is going to sustain for years. So we had to prepare for it. And early this year, we started like moving more from multiple states to just tailing it down to 1 or 2 states, and eventually just to 1 state, which was Florida, and moving from a whole virtual team to an in-house team. We had a bunch of VAs that were cold calling because it was easily implemented, easily replaceable, and it was cheap at the beginning, right? But then we shifted to like in-house people, in-house acquisition, transaction, disposition, everything. Now it's more expensive, of course, right, on a salary basis, but it's also higher quality. It's like quality versus quantity. So you have to kind of like make the adjustment. So it's a whole different business model that we're handling at this point in time. But it's also, I think, more sustainable because if you have a lot of smart people in one room, right, initially the business is growing a lot faster. VAs are not necessarily like giving feedback, right? They're doing like simple tasks, and you just always have to like delegate your time of like giving them tasks. You're not necessarily thinking outside of the box. So we shifted away from wholesaling. I guess when June came in, we had a bunch of wholesales that fell through because it was like when the market had that crash in a way, and a lot of people backing out of contracts left and right. So we had all these like decent deals. We acquired them for 50, 60% ARVs. So it was great deals that you could wholesale that somebody else and still makes money on the flip side. So when we realized, we have 10 of these deals right now in escrow, I'm going to lose earnest money either way. It kind of forced us, hey, why don't we just fix them up ourselves? So then we kind of went from the wholesale business to like the fix and flip business. And from there eventually to the turnkey business, because then we started selling those in the market and it worked. But then we also realized it's easier if you already have a buyer and then you just sell to them. So the whole turnkey strategy kind of came in. We partnered with a business partner that had a lot of connections overseas to Italy and European investors, and they were all interested in buying homes here in the United States that are cash flowing. So the typical turnkey strategy. So we started setting up our business model around that by finding on the acquisition side, finding those deals. On the construction side, bringing some of the contractors in-house, because once you do a certain volume, it's cheaper just having them on a salary versus always paying them per project. So we had that break-even point. We started bringing people in-house and really having the control of the project itself, having less variables that we have to jiggle. And then obviously from there on the disposition side, just handling this client relationship overseas and making sure that we really target the returns, the cash-on-cash return that those guys are looking for. And then they make kind of connect to the acquisition. So that was like the core focus. And then I guess all the other deals that didn't really fit that spectrum, we the wholesale that tried to flip on the market. And I think right now the whole fix and flip is probably a little bit more risky with potentially downturning economies. So we're definitely scaling down the fix and flip side, and we're only really fixing, flipping, and doing the rentals if we already have a buyer. The pre-security, when we have it under contract, they say, I'm gonna do it, fix it up, I'll close it, then we really move forward. But right now we're really conservative in what project we take on and where we're heading with this market, because I think nobody really knows how the next months are going to look like, and you have to be just super aware and consistently, like every single day, checking in with the market. Okay, are we still here? Is something going on that I'm not aware of? I think that's the biggest challenge right now, and especially for me, being young, I've never gone through a cycle, right? So 2008, obviously I was not in real estate. So now it's, for me, I see the two ways, right? One way is I'm scared because I have never been through it, but I'm also confident that I know people that have gone through it, and if I need any advice, I know who to talk to. On the other side, I'm like, because I'm young, if I'm going through it now, it pushes me and it forces me to build a really strong business from A to Z, the core, the processes, and everything. And if you're sustaining and getting through this, I think on the other side, we're going to be so much better. And then the next cycle after that, right, let's say there's a 10-year spike that goes up, I think we can take huge opportunities in our hands, because now we're forced to get really down to business and really get good, right? Get all the processes figured out and be a really solid business. So I'm personally excited for the challenge, but also nervous, as everyone should be. I'm not taking it easy. I'm consistently aware of what's changing, and I'm definitely putting a lot of work and effort to educate myself, be able to sustain whatever's going to happen in the next couple of months.
Yeah, and that's pretty smart too, how you're pivoting, like you're looking into the future and pivoting your business based on what you think may happen. I do like that turnkey model, especially because you make the money on the flip, and it's almost like you get residual income because you're dealing with the property management, right?
Yeah, we do the property management for them too.
Yeah, so it's like you already have the seller or the buyer, and then you get to make money on them in the future, and they're going to buy more properties off of you. So your disposition is fairly easy, and you get monthly recurring revenue.
Yeah, and we even go this far that we still keep equity in those deals, even though it's a turnkey, like the natural equity that we gain through the purchase price, or if we do some refi at 40-50% LTV, we use that component as our equity, basically, because this is, the refi is always going to be on my social security and my credit, my name, right? Because investors overseas are not going to be able to refi. So this is always my equity, even though there's still a loan behind it. If we do like a 50% refi, and then if the 50% comes from the investor, then obviously that's their equity. Now, if they do the full equity, if they pay us out full, we still keep like a short portion of equity that is, gained through just the acquisition itself. So it's like a triple digit, right? We get the acquisition fee, we get the fee for managing it every single month and maintaining it, but we also get a little bit of equity. And then 5 years, if we refi, then we can still squeeze out some money there.
That's pretty solid. Now, down in Florida, do you do joint ventures and things like that with the guys also?
Yes, we do. We do joint ventures. Obviously, when it comes to disposition, if there's any deals that we might be able to disposition, definitely I would like to joint venture and help people, especially if somebody has a great deal that fits a rental model and they bought it right. We can come in, we can fix it up, we can then sell it to somebody and do a joint venture. We share the profits, we share the work. I'm a huge fan of teamwork. that comes again from sports. I think you can only be so successful by yourself, but once you start opening up and using your competitors in a way as also, partners, I think this is where you can able really to sustain a uncertain market like where we're entering at this point. And, a lot of wholesalers have the acquisition process nailed down, but then anything afterwards, they're struggling. And now this position is getting way harder. So I'm definitely happy to open up for joint venture opportunities on this position, or even joint venture on fixing it up, refi strategies, keeping stuff at vendors. If you don't have the resources in place within the Florida market, I'm definitely able to help in every major city. So Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, Miami, we're able to really help you guys from A to Z. And when it comes to multifamily, because we fund the investors overseas, we're consistently looking to deploy that money in, cash flowing Class C multifamilies that have like a 3 to 5 year refi plan in place that has great returns for investors to secure their cash flow, to secure the income. Especially right now, people would like to put their money somewhere, right? Stocks don't seem as good right now. Crypto obviously is really risky at this point in time. So people are coming back to real estate like, hey, Max, do you guys have any 10%, return investments I can put my money in? And this is another thing. So if there's good at multifamilies, happy to syndicate and help in a fundraise or help in anything that is needed.
That's pretty solid. What would you say for guys just getting into business? Like, what kind of tips could you give them?
I think, with the market turning right now, the best tip I could probably give is just seeking advice, finding people that are doing good. They're, something like, hey, I want to be like this guy in 2-3 years, and start seeking advice from those people. What are they doing? How are they consistently working through this economy, right? I think a lot of people could successfully start real estate by just going through YouTube videos and whatnot the last couple of years, because it was an easy market. Everyone was in a way able to take that pieces that they got and did successful, deals with it. But I think stuff is turning, and now it's really seeking advice and building relationships with people that are really on top of things in the industry. And I think that's the number one advice. And then just really committing into investing in yourself, right? I think that's the number one thing. Just invest in yourself when you started. Invest that time and whatever money it takes for mentorships, education, anything to really learn the processes, right? You're not learning anything in school. And that was the number one thing when I started the business, right? You're not learning about how to be a leader, right? So you start getting people, but you also need to learn, like, how can I be a leader to them? How can I create an environment where they feel comfortable, where they feel like they can grow, where they feel like their work is put to a reason, there's a purpose behind it, there's a core value behind it, and those things you don't learn at school. So it was a huge learning lessons of accounting. You go through all these accounting classes by pretending you're in this $1 million corporation, and you do those like stupid accounting classes, but then once you actually have a real business, you don't even know where to start and how to add your miles that you drive and these things. So just the small educational pieces, even if you're not even building a business, but the things you learn, I think are so critical moving forward in anything that you want to accomplish. So invest in yourself and find the right network and seek the right advice or mentorship and anything to really get from A to B and B to C. Don't try to do it all yourself. I think there's a lot of knowledge out there and a lot of mentorship from people. You just have to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and you're right too, because the mentorship or even just being around, like you're in the Collective Genius, like we're in that together.
Yep.
And being in rooms with people like that are uber successful and have been in it for years, you can avoid a lot of mistakes just by talking with people like that. And people that have made the mistakes want to help other people to not make them.
Exactly, right. It's a give and take, because I think everyone has had some kind of mentor that gave them the advice, and then they accomplished something, and then they're so thankful, and then it's almost your responsibility. If you've taken advantage of somebody giving you something, it's not necessarily like your responsibility to give back to that person, but it's your responsibility to give back somebody else, right? The chain kind of goes down the line. So, some of the mentors that I had, I wasn't really able to give them like crazy advice, like there was in any way comparable to what they've given me, right? It was impossible. They gave me like this advice that changed my life, and then, how can I pay him back? But I think it's just paying back somebody else, right? You see, the people underneath that are asking you, and now it's your turn to be a mentor. Now it's your turn to turn around and change their perspective and help other people to be successful. So I think that chain, as long as that continues, people over profits, right? Once you invest in the people around you, you will sustain, you will build a good brand, you will build a sustainable business.
Yeah, I like it. Kind of like the pay it forward mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, I got a different kind of question for you. I saw your Instagram page and you're ripped. What is your diet like?
That's a good question. I don't really know if I have a specific diet anymore, but I can tell you when I was training, which was, I guess I stopped officially training in June this year, and I'm taking a break right now to kind of really focus on the business and then finding my way back to track and field maybe next year. But it was definitely, and it still is in a way, really unique. Like I personally don't eat breakfast, which could be something of just my culture, I guess, in Europe. Europe itself, it's not really a lunch culture. Like the US is like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and breakfast is super heavy. For European country, breakfast is usually just like a snack. There's no lunch, and then it's like a bigger dinner. So I always grew up with that, and I never even eat lunch. And then so when I did track and field, I usually didn't even do any breakfast, just like for fasting. So I was usually just fasting for 6 to 12 hours, 18-hour days. So I only just really eat once a day in the afternoon, which I definitely eat a lot, right? I eat a lot of food when I eat. But you can never really eat as much as you're burning over the entire day. It's like when you wake up at 5 a.m. and you train. And then back in the days, I went to school. Now I just go from workout straight to work. So I don't really have time to eat. And I just have done it for so long that I really need to eat it. I just, go through the fasting and then train again in the, early afternoon. And then afterwards I eat. So I think that's the one thing. On the diet wise, I always cook every single day, cook fresh. I never really eat out. And if I eat out, it's always like with some kind of focus of what I'm eating. I don't really eat fast food at all. And then it's just the consistency in training. And it's again, consistency every single day. There's mornings so I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm not going to do it. But then there's this tiny voice telling me like, you better do it. My wife is always saying that she's like, oh, can you just stay in bed tonight? I'm so sore. And she pulls me back in, and then I, close my eyes for a minute, and it's almost like I get this slap. And I'm like, no, I can't. It's just from years of just never being able to not go, right? It was like, oh, you have a purpose. You have to train for world championships. So even though I don't train for it, it's still in me. So I cannot ever skip it. It's like
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I started eating differently this year. I was kind of curious if it was like high proteins, all that kind of stuff, or what you did. It's interesting with the fasting. It is different culture.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I've tried all the diets, right? I was ketogenic for a year. I did high protein, low carb, high carb. I did it all because I was like, maybe that's the secret to be successful. I think it depends on your body type. What I've just realized personally is when you travel a lot, if you travel overseas and you travel to different states and you have some super specific diet like ketogenic, and then you go to a restaurant and you cannot eat just fat, right? Then you have an issue because one day before your competition, all of a sudden you eat carbs and it kind of destroys your metabolism. So I've had these lessons where, especially going out of the country, right, where you go into a different country and you just have no accessibility to your things that would fit your diet, and you completely screw yourself over, and then your energy level drops. So then I realized that, easiest way is just like being really balanced, right? You have just really balanced, you have your fruits, you have your carbs, you have your protein, you just eat balanced, but you're not really restricting yourself in a way. It's just in a way, the only restriction is like you're eating really balanced, you're eating aware, but you're putting in is going to produce the energy. I think this has been, a really simple game changer. Like I say in business, you always try to make it so complicated. But I guess the power is in the simplicity. Just be simple, figure something out that works, and maybe adjust later on. But like, going straight into some crazy diet like ketogenic, that was probably the worst year of my life. Being keto the first 6 months, oh my gosh, I thought I'm going to die because I was so hungry. My body was like, you need to eat some carbs. You just eat fat. And it was terrible. I competed like shit because I then went to a competition and my metabolism was right there to switch. And all of a sudden, like, you had to eat carbs because there was nothing else available. Well, guess what? Your body was so confused. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're just eating fat and now you're eating this carb. I don't even know what to burn anymore. And then performance declines. So you have to be careful with how much complexity you're adding into, your daily routines.
Yeah, it makes sense. Consistency is what I'm getting from you.
Exactly. Consistency is key.
That's cool, man. We're almost out of time. Is there anything else we wanted to touch on?
Well, I guess another thing I would share with you is, so my wife and I, obviously my wife is my business partner. She has been there from day one, and without her, I wouldn't be there because, the days when I was going to the workout or going to school, she was then taking calls and she was doing the business. So she has been extremely helpful. It's definitely a challenge of being married and doing the same work because, where's the balance? Sometimes we're sitting in bed and we're still talking. about work. So, but on the other side, we're doing the same thing. So it really, pulling on the same string. But the point is, we're both basically trying to give back. We had a lot of great mentorships there, and trying to give back and trying to give some advice of things that we've learned and the things we're doing, and also just sharing the journey. Right, sharing from every day what we're doing, the projects we're doing, the things we're learning. There's so much to share. And we started a social media platform a couple of weeks ago to really give back and also address, multiple audiences. There's this audience for just like, okay, I want to learn about how to get into business and learn about real estate, but we also share about how to have a real estate business as a young couple, wife, all these things. I share some of my workouts when I work out, the journey of, getting in shape or staying in shape or potentially going back to being a world-class track and field athlete. So it's about health, business, relationships. So we share a lot of things to just address a wide audience. So if, everyone wants to follow my social medias, they'll be amazing. I think we will giving out a lot of good content. We're still early. We're consistently posting every single day and, growing and adjusting, and feedbacks is always what we need to get from where we are to really having a brand and really getting value to people. So you have Instagram, you have TikTok. It's just Katie-Max-Vollmer. So Katie is KATIE-Max and then -B, like Victor, OLLMER. So that's our Instagram and our TikTok, where we upload probably the most. We also have a YouTube, which is just Katie Vollmer 6046. I think it's a weird name. We've managed to change that, but there's basically the same videos and YouTube reels. So also in YouTube, you have like longer videos where we go into detail. Like next week, we're most likely going to upload a detail about pre-foreclosure. We go from A to Z of the entire process, like how we find pre-foreclosures, how we talk to them and everything. So there's going to be great content for people if they would like to utilize that. It's all free. And obviously people can also call or text me if they want to seek advice for mentorship or joint venture opportunities or anything like that. And my cell phone is 904-638-0078. So if anyone wants to, call, text, I guess just text me real quick saying, hey, I saw your podcast. I would like to talk, so we can schedule a time. More than happy to be valuable to somebody else and give something back to somebody who would like to use it to their advantage to build and, sustain, grow, be financially independent or whatever it is they try to seek.
That's awesome too. Which anyone listening to, check out the show notes, because we'll have links to all the different channels and the phone number in case you missed it. But that is awesome too, because especially with your experience and how well you're doing, it's a lot of effort to start putting the content out. So that's really cool. You're doing that to help other people out also, because that's like giving people gold. It's like, okay, here's what I'm doing. Here's the mistakes I'm making, and they get to experience it and learn for free.
Yeah, I mean, this is how we started, right? We looked at the certain people that are giving a lot of free knowledge out there. And this is how you start, right? It's not gonna like necessarily explain you everything, but it's gonna guide you in a direction. And then taking those nuggets, it's a two-way stream. It keeps us accountable of consistently like giving value, right? Once we do something new and we learn something, then we use that and we teach people and show them how we do it. It kind of like as a learning lesson for us too, because now once you understand it and then you teach it, you get even deeper into it and you really understand it better. On the other side, it's also just amazing seeing other people be successful, right? Because that is really what we love, is the people side of things. Right? Real estate, I think a lot of people think about real estate as just this numbers game. It's about profits, returns, cash and cash, blah, blah, blah. But if you really look at it, it's about the people, right? You work with somebody, they have a distressed circumstance, and you're here to help, right? And some investors, they look for certain returns to put their money safely in a trustworthy environment. Well, now you have another, people versus numbers. So the whole people component, and that's one of the things that my wife and I really took into consideration. It's important for us. It's about the people. It's about the people that you can help accomplish their goals. If it's in mentorship, if it's selling a property, buying a property, whatever it is, we're consistently dealing with clients. And client over profit or people over profit is really very, maybe set our focus. And I think there's a handful of people that do it, but I think there should be way more people in that industry really focusing on the people component versus just how much return am I making, because it's not all about return all the time.
Yeah, and you're right too. You help a bunch of people. You make money while you're doing it. It's like,
exactly. It's a win-win, and everyone should win if you're doing business. If you want to sustain in business for a long time, but everyone should win. everyone who works with us should win. And I think that's one of the things I've learned again from, people that have been in the industry for a while. You've been to the presentation where Jeff Hoffman, right, was talking about how he built the Booking.com and all these businesses. And it was just, the people component was so strong and, opened my eyes. So it's like, I need to really have A players around me, and I need to give back to people on every single side. I need to bring value. Else, why would people go and join you, be part of anything that you present if there's no value to it?
Yeah, 100%. Well, hey, man, we appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you guys having me, of course. I mean, it was great being here, and I'm always happy to answer any questions if there's anything from the audience later on, or if you have anything for me, obviously reach out to me, and I'm happy to provide anything that I can.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and anyone listening, check out Max's social, and he's giving you his phone number. Want to reach out, shoot him a text, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate you. And everyone, thanks for listening. Get out there, crush it, close some deals. Hey, thanks, good.
Thank you, Brian.